Why is it that some people work incredibly hard their entire lives, grind themselves to exhaustion, constantly try to prove themselves, and yet they still feel like they're not enough? And then you meet someone who seems to have done none of that work, who carries themselves with this quiet, unshakable certainty, and you think, what is that? Where does that come from? Because whatever they have, it doesn't look like anything they earned through hustle. I want to talk about something today that might genuinely change how you think about confidence. Not as a motivational speech, not to hype you up.
The path is unclear.
But because I think most of us are operating on a completely broken understanding of what confidence actually is, where it comes from, and why chasing it the way we've been taught to chase it is one of the main reasons we never quite feel like we have it. So let's start with the thing almost everybody gets wrong. We have been sold this idea, quietly but consistently for most of our lives, that confidence is something you build, like a muscle. Like you go to the gym and you do the reps, and over time your confidence grows. You accomplish things, you put tally marks on the board, and eventually the scoreboard gets high enough that you feel good about yourself. This is the standard framework.
You can struggle,
do hard things,
but the end is always the
prove
same.
yourself, then feel confident. And here's what nobody talks about. It doesn't work that way. Not really. Not in any lasting, sustainable sense. Think about someone you know who by all external measures is successful. Maybe they've built a business. Maybe they're in incredible shape. Maybe they've achieved something most people spend their whole careers chasing. And yet when you actually talk to them, when you get under the surface, there's this persistent anxiety. This constant need to do more, prove more, protect what they've built. Does that sound like confidence to you? Because it doesn't to me. What that is performance. And performance is fragile. Here's the thing about building confidence through effort and achievement. Every time you accomplish something and get that temporary rush of feeling good about yourself, you've actually taught your brain something dangerous. You've taught it that your worth is conditional, that you feel okay about yourself when you perform well, and by logical extension, you feel not okay about yourself when you don't. So now every single situation in your life becomes a potential test. A job interview isn't just an opportunity, it's a verdict. A first date isn't just a connection, it's an evaluation. A presentation isn't just communication, it's a performance where the audience is judging your fundamental worth as a human being. That is exhausting. And that, ironically, is one of the core reasons people lack confidence. The effort to confidence pipeline doesn't produce confidence. It produces conditional self-acceptance wrapped in anxiety about losing what you've built. That's not the same thing. So where does real confidence come from? I want you to think about this carefully, because the answer is going to feel counterintuitive at first, and you might resist it. Real confidence doesn't come from what you've done. It comes from your relationship with yourself. More specifically, it comes from your relationship with uncertainty, discomfort, and the possibility of failure. Let me explain what I mean. People who have genuine, unshakable confidence, the kind that doesn't collapse when something goes wrong, aren't confident because everything has gone right for them. They're confident because they have an internal certainty that even if things go wrong, they'll be okay. Not okay because they'll fix it or recover it or perform their way back to acceptable. Okay as a baseline. Okay as a starting point, not a destination. That's a completely different relationship with yourself than the one most of us have. Most of us have set up our internal world like a courtroom, and we are simultaneously the defendant and the jury. Every day we walk in and we present our evidence. Here's what I did today. Here's how I was received. Here's how I looked, how I performed, how I was evaluated by other people. And then the jury deliberates and delivers a verdict about whether you're allowed to feel good about yourself today. That cycle is brutal, and it's completely invisible to most people who are trapped inside it. The person with genuine confidence has stepped out of the courtroom entirely. They've stopped treating life as an ongoing trial of their worth. Now here's where I need to get into the psychology of this, because I don't just want you to nod along to an abstract idea. I want you to understand mechanically why effort can't produce confidence, and what actually does. There's a concept in psychology around what's called the locus of evaluation. Basically, where do you look for feedback about how you're doing? People who rely on effort and achievement for confidence have an external locus of evaluation. They look outward. They look at results, reactions, rankings, feedback from other people. And because all of those things fluctuate, because you can't control how you perform every day or how people respond to you, your sense of yourself fluctuates with it. And here's the insidious part. Over time, you start needing bigger and bigger achievements to get the same feeling. The first time you did something hard and it worked out, maybe that carried you for a while. But the 10th time, the 20th, the baseline shifts. What used to feel like an accomplishment now just feels like maintenance. So you need more. And the more you need, the more evidence you're generating for your brain that your okayness is dependent on external performance. This is the confidence treadmill. You're running constantly just to stay in place emotionally. And the reason people keep running is because the alternative looks terrifying. The alternative looks like this. Stop running and feel whatever you've been outrunning. Because for a lot of people, the drive to achieve, to constantly improve, to build confidence through effort, is actually a sophisticated avoidance strategy. If I'm always working on becoming more confident, I never have to sit with the uncomfortable reality of feeling not confident right now. The pursuit becomes the escape. And just like any escape, it stops working, so you need more of it. Let me give you a concrete image for this. Imagine two people standing at the edge of a high diving board for the first time. Person A thinks to themselves, I need to build up to this. Let me do more practice, more preparation, more research, more mental rehearsal. When I'm ready, when I feel confident, I'll jump. Person B has a different internal experience. They're scared. They feel the fear fully. And then they jump anyway, not because they're not scared, but because their fear isn't the deciding factor. Now here's the question. Which of those two people is building genuine confidence? It's obviously person B. But not because the jump worked out. Not because they landed well or looked cool doing it. It's because they proved something to themselves that no amount of preparation could prove. That discomfort doesn't have to be a stop sign. The action came before the feeling. That's the sequence that matters. Conventional wisdom tells you that confidence comes first and then you take action. You wait until you feel ready and then you do the thing. But that has the whole thing backwards. The feeling of genuine confidence comes from the repeated experience of acting before you feel ready and surviving it. Not thriving necessarily, just surviving. Realizing that the discomfort didn't destroy you. This is what builds what I'd call identity-level confidence, which is fundamentally different from achievement-based confidence. Achievement-based confidence says, I feel good about myself because of what I've done. Identity-level confidence says, I trust myself because of who I am in relation to difficulty. Those are not the same thing. One is a scoreboard, the other is a foundation. And here's why this matters so much. A scoreboard can change. It can be taken away. You can fail. You can lose. The market can crash. The relationship can end. The body can change. And if your confidence was tied to the scoreboard, your confidence crashes with it. But your identity, your sense of who you are in relationship to challenge, doesn't disappear when circumstances change. You can't take that away from someone. It's not stored anywhere external. It lives in how you see yourself, and that's built through a completely different process than accumulating achievements. So what is that process? This is where I want to get genuinely practical, not in a list of tips way, but in a way that shifts your understanding at a deeper level. The process of building real confidence has almost nothing to do with doing impressive things. It has everything to do with how you relate to the ordinary moments where you feel uncomfortable, uncertain, or afraid. Those moments are the actual training ground. Every time you feel the pull to avoid something because it makes you anxious, and you go toward it instead, you're teaching your nervous system something. You're teaching it that anxiety is survivable, that uncertainty doesn't mean danger, that you can be uncomfortable and still function. Over time, that becomes your baseline expectation of yourself. Not that you'll succeed at everything, but that you can handle whatever happens. That's confidence. That quiet, low-key certainty that you can handle what comes.
But I will speak the truth.
And you'll notice that this has nothing to do with how things turn out. Someone else might fail and catastrophize. You might fail and think, okay, that's useful information, what's next? The external situation is identical. The internal experience is completely different. That difference is confidence. Now I want to address something that comes up almost every time this topic gets discussed, because I know some of you are thinking it. What about building skills? Surely skill development builds confidence, right? You get better at something and naturally you feel more confident in that area. Isn't that real confidence? Yes and no.
But the end
Here's
is
the
always
distinction.
same.
Competence can reduce anxiety in a specific domain. If you've practiced public speaking 1,000 times, you probably have less anxiety walking onto a stage than someone who's never done it. That's real, and it matters. But competence in one area doesn't transfer to a global sense of self-worth. The brilliant surgeon who's terrified of emotional vulnerability. The extraordinarily successful entrepreneur who's crippled by imposter syndrome. The person who's exceptional at their job and completely lost in their personal relationships. Competence is domain-specific. Confidence, genuine confidence, is self-specific. It's about your relationship with yourself, not your skill level in any particular area. And this is why you see so many highly competent, outwardly successful people who are privately anxious, insecure, and constantly trying to prove themselves. Their competence never addressed the actual source of their lack of confidence, which is their relationship with themselves and with uncertainty. Competence built on top of a shaky foundation is still a shaky structure. You can pile achievement after achievement on top of it, and the foundation doesn't get more stable. It just gets more hidden. Let me take this somewhere that might feel a bit uncomfortable, because I think this is where the real insight lives. Most of what we call a lack of confidence is actually a very specific, very understandable fear. And that fear is the fear of being seen fully and rejected. Think about that. When you feel not confident in a social situation, what are you actually afraid of? When you hesitate to speak up, to try something new, to put your work out into the world, what is the core thing you're protecting yourself from? It's the possibility that people will see you, the real you, the uncertain and imperfect and sometimes struggling version of you, and decide you're not enough. That's the fear underneath the lack of confidence. And the way most people respond to this fear is by creating a more impressive version of themselves to show the world. More achievements, more credentials, a more polished presentation. And they think, when I've built enough of a case for my worthiness, people won't be able to reject me. Or at least, it won't hurt as much, because I'll have all this evidence in my favor. But that strategy never actually protects you from rejection. It just means that when rejection comes, and it always comes in some form, you feel more confused by it. Because you did all the work, you built the case, and they still didn't choose you, or still didn't applaud, or still didn't validate you the way you needed. And now you're left wondering what else you could possibly do to make yourself acceptable. The confidence built on achievement is, at its core, a strategy for managing other people's perceptions of you. And because you can never fully control how you're perceived, that strategy will always eventually fail. Real confidence isn't a strategy for managing perception. It's a state that emerges when you genuinely stop needing external validation to feel okay about yourself. And notice I said genuinely, not as a practiced performance of not caring. Some people think confidence is just convincing yourself you don't care about what others think. That's not it either. That's suppression, and suppression has its own costs. Genuine not needing validation comes from something else entirely. It comes from a stable, warm, consistent relationship with yourself. The same way a securely attached child doesn't need constant reassurance from their parent because they have an internalized sense that the love is there. A genuinely confident person doesn't need constant external validation because they have an internalized sense of their own worth. And that internalized sense doesn't come from doing impressive things. It comes from how you treat yourself in the quiet moments, how you speak to yourself when you fail, whether you can sit with your own discomfort or whether you immediately try to escape it, whether you can acknowledge your own pain without turning it into catastrophe, whether you show up for yourself the way you'd show up for someone you loved. That's the actual work, and it looks nothing like hustle. Here's something that I think is worth sitting with. The reason confidence feels so hard to build is because we're trying to build the wrong thing. We're trying to build a feeling. Confidence as a feeling, as that particular sensation of being sure of yourself, comes and goes.
You can struggle.
Some days you have it, some days you don't. Trying to make a feeling permanent is a bit like trying to make the weather permanent. You can't do it, and exhausting yourself trying is just going to make you miserable. But confidence as a posture, as an orientation toward life, that can become stable. That's not a feeling you're chasing. It's a way of being that you're practicing. And here's the key difference. When confidence is a feeling you're chasing, every situation becomes about whether it will deliver that feeling. You go to a party and you're subconsciously assessing, is this going to make me feel confident or not? You do a project and underneath the execution is the question, will this give me confidence or take it away? But when confidence is a posture, a way of relating to life, you're not looking for it to come from outside. You're bringing it with you, not as a performance, not as a pretense, but as a genuine orientation that says, whatever happens here, I'll handle it. I'm not here to be evaluated. I'm here to engage. That shift, from confidence seeking to confidence being, is the actual transformation. And you can't achieve your way to it. You can only practice your way into it. Now let me talk about something that a lot of confidence content never really addresses, which is the role that other people play in all of this. Part of the reason the effort approach to confidence is so seductive is because it's visible. You can see someone's achievements. You can point to them. And in a world where so much of our identity is shaped by how others perceive us, there's something deeply appealing about the idea that if I just accumulate enough visible proof of my worth, other people will see it and confirm it for me. But here's what happens. When someone with genuine confidence walks into a room, you don't feel like they're showing you their assume. You feel like they're genuinely present with you. There's no performance happening. They're not trying to establish dominance or impress anyone. They're just there, engaged, comfortable, curious. And paradoxically, that reads as far more confident than someone who's subtly positioning themselves. Name-dropping, bringing up accomplishments in conversation, managing how they're perceived. That latter behavior reads as insecurity, even when it's wrapped in impressive credentials. Because what it's communicating is, I need you to see me a certain way. And that need is visible even when the person thinks they're hiding it. The person who genuinely doesn't need you to see them a certain way is magnetic. Not because they're trying to be, precisely because they're not trying at all. And that magnetism, that quality that draws people to genuinely confident individuals, can't be manufactured. You can study it and try to perform it and get better at appearing that way. But it won't feel the same to people around you. The real version has a different texture. It's actually, at root, about freedom. Freedom from the need for things to go a certain way. Freedom from the verdict of other people's opinions. And freedom can't be performed. It can only be lived. So here we are at the central question. If effort doesn't build confidence, and achievement doesn't build confidence, and competence only builds domain-specific confidence rather than the real thing, what actually builds it? Let me try to say this as clearly as I can. Genuine confidence is built through the accumulation of honest, compassionate encounters with yourself. It's built in the moment you fail at something and don't collapse. It's built in the moment you say what you actually think, even when you're uncertain, and survive the experience. It's built in the moment you sit with discomfort instead of immediately escaping into distraction or performance. It's built in the moment you treat yourself with the same patience and care you'd offer to a good friend who was struggling. None of those moments look impressive from the outside. You can't put them on a arsum. They don't make good social media content. But they are the actual substrate of confidence. They're how you build a genuine relationship with yourself. And that relationship is what confidence actually is. It's not a feeling. It's not a skill. It's not a scoreboard. It's a relationship. And like all relationships, it's built through consistent, honest, caring engagement over time. And also, like all relationships, it can be repaired. If you've spent years treating yourself as a project to be optimized rather than a person to be known, you can start changing that. Not by doing more impressive things, by doing the opposite, by slowing down, by being honest with yourself about what you're actually feeling and wanting and afraid of, by responding to your own difficulties with something other than judgment and demands. The most counterintuitive thing I can tell you is this: the path to confidence is not through becoming someone more impressive. It's through becoming more genuinely at home in who you already are. Not a static who you are, not an excuse to stop growing, but a fundamental acceptance that right now, as you are, with all the uncertainty and imperfection and ongoing development, you are already acceptable, already worthy of your own regard. And from that foundation, weirdly, everything else becomes easier. The risk-taking becomes easier because you're not betting your self-worth on the outcome. The creativity becomes easier because you're not paralyzed by the fear of judgment. The relationships become easier because you're not performing for approval. The growth becomes easier because you're not growing to escape from inadequacy. You're growing because it's genuinely interesting and you want to. That's what confidence actually enables. Not the performance of confidence, but the reality of it. So the next time you feel like you need to do more, achieve more, prove more, earn your way to feeling okay about yourself, I want you to pause and ask a different question. Not what do I need to accomplish to finally feel confident, but what would it look like to treat myself right now, in this moment of uncertainty and imperfection, with genuine care and regard? Because confidence was never at the end of the effort. It was never something you could work hard enough to finally deserve. It was always something that grew from the inside, from how you showed up for yourself in the moments no one else was watching. The people who seemed to have what you want didn't get it by grinding harder. They got it, or found it, or stumbled into it, by doing something much quieter and much more radical. They stopped making their own okayness conditional. That's available to you, not after more achievement, not after you've proven yourself sufficiently, right now, in whatever state you're currently in. That's where confidence actually lives. And I think on some level you already knew that. The work isn't the answer. The relationship is.